The banking restructuring exercise in 2019 was very, very necessary. I'm a lecturer at the School of Business and Law at the Regent College, London, in the UK. I teach leadership and management at the MBA level. I've been a banker where I started my career from the officer role all the way to an executive. So I am a banker, I'm a corporate trainer, and I'm also an author. My name is Richard Kwarteng Ahenkorah. The banking restructuring exercise in 2019 was very, very necessary. The economy was going through a certain downturn that we needed some form of innovation, some support, and some injection to turn the industry around. Even though the banking cleanup exercise was necessary, I personally also think that we could have been more creative. And if you like, we should have also been more involving. There should have been broader consultation and then wider conversation about how to handle it. And I think that was what was lacking. We did not really involve the proper stakeholders who would actually have helped us to come out with a very good decision. So what they could have done, basically, number one, was to have involved the major players, the key stakeholders, listening to them to the end. They listened. They didn't listen really well. They didn't listen to the end. Listening to the end is the decision that would come after the conversation that was held. For example, I heard that the Association of Bankers advised that with 7 billion cedis, the whole industry would have been revived or could have sustained the industry. However, we went ahead to spend between 23 billion to 25 billion to bring the industry down. I think that these are things that they didn't do well. Number two, I also think that, the concept of banking itself, it involves money. Growing up, a child hears that this is a bank. They know that the banks have money. What it means is that it's a very sensitive area to discuss. But when you put it out there in the public domain every day, talking about the fact that banks don't have money, obviously customers will shy away from doing businesses with the bank. And these were things they didn't do well. Thirdly, I remember so well that the former finance minister was interviewed and he was asked, was this the only way to collapse some of these banks? He said yes. But I think that was not a good approach to problem solving, because there are so many ways to every problem. What do I mean? If you go with an approach that either my way or the highway, or my way or no way, that means you're not having any way to solve the problem. But to be more of a problem solver, you should be looking at so many ways to solve the problem. I personally think that the banking restructuring exercise was necessary, but the actions that followed after was not proper for nation building and for the local economy. There are a lot of lessons learned to this end. For example, government should be able to give some autonomy to the operations of the central bank, should be allowed to work with the policies that guide the operations of the central bank. The central bank should not meddle so much in politics. I personally think that these are some of the things they should be looking at. Number two, major stakeholders like the shareholders should also avoid any conflict of interest situations within their operations. These are also one of the things that we should be looking at. Of course, customers must also learn where they put their monies and all of it. Employees must also work in line with policies, procedures. These are some of the findings of the challenges that affected some of the banks. Government must use, or even if they used it, I think we should be able to be mindful of the pestle tool. The pestle tool makes things easier. Before you take any actions, before and after, use the pestle. Check the political impact. Check the economic impact. Check on the social impact. Check even technological impact, as it were. Check on the legal issues. Check on the ecological or even the environment itself. For example, if you look at what happened to the previous government, you would notice that it had a toll on their political, if you like, capital. It did. Economically, a lot of things happened. Businesses went down. We didn't even do a lot of analysis on the value chain. When you close a bank, it is definitely also going to affect the value chain or the people within that particular chain that support the business to survive. There were stories that banks that were paying a lot of taxes to support those municipal activities and their budget, it dropped because they were not there. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have taken any actions on them. What I'm saying is the actions were too harsh. It's like using a sledgehammer to kill a fly. I personally think that there are ways that we could have looked at it. Even look at the social impact of their decision. A lot of people died. A lot of homes were broken. There were a lot of thousands of employees who lost their jobs. Some moved on. Some are still struggling. For me, it comes back to what leadership always say. People do not care until they know that you care. I think that it did cost the government. And we should have used this period, for example, at that time, to also enhance our innovation in the banking industry. I'm talking about technology. And even look at the laws. Yeah. So there was a legal impact as well. Even before and after, before you take that decision, you should be looking at it from that perspective. I personally feel that a lot of lessons have been learned, but I also think going forward, there should have been a broader conversation and a wider consultation before we can take such decisions. And these are some of the lessons I feel that we should learn or we have learned going forward.